A few weeks ago, we reported on a case involving an 18-year-old that was shot to death in Toronto while he was in an empty streetcar. Now, for those of you who forgot about that story or didn't see that story, cops were trying to get him to get off of the streetcar. He did have a knife and he was pacing back and forth in the streetcar, but that was the only weapon he had. And this was the reaction by the police. Take a look. So the cops shot at him 9 times and they killed him. After they killed him, they used a taser, and there was also a part of the footage where you can clearly see the cop kick something, and since you can't see Yatim's body, you can only assume that he kicked Yatim, but I think that that's a pretty safe assumption. Now, the reason why there is an update to this story, and it's actually a very good update, is because it turns out that the cop who shot at Yatim and killed Yatim will face murder charges, second-degree murder charges. And that's not something that you hear about quite often here in the US when cops do something similar, when they use excessive force.
So this is shocking news for those of us who live in the United States. First of all, there were tens of thousands of people that had signed petitions and then were out in the streets in protest afterwards. From time to time in America, you'll have a protest over a cop shooting, but in general, we've gotten so used to it that there aren't usually people pouring into the streets. It's America. Of course, there's cop shootings. And I understand, obviously, a lot of the times the cop shooting is justifiable. Somebody pulls a gun, etc. But oftentimes now we're getting video evidence where they're not. And in this case in Canada, it wasn't, because you could see, as we covered in the initial story, a lot of the other cops milling around. It doesn't look like they think there's any danger at all.
Yeah,
they've got their hands on their hips.
There was no imminent threat, and I think that the surveillance clearly showed that, which is why this cop, James Forcillo, is going to face murder charges, second-degree murder charges, and we'll see how it plays out. But I can't help but think about very specific cases here in the U.S. that we recently covered where there was definitely excessive force. Now, the first story that popped into my head, even though it didn't involve murder, had to do with a woman by the name of Brandy Riddell. She was at a Davenport, Iowa mall. She was caught shoplifting, and while authorities were questioning her, behind the store in a little room, here's the reaction from one of the cops that was questioning her.
He's like smiling at first, and then he says, "Oh, I've decided I'm going to pound you."
And the reason why I'm bringing the story up now is because even though there's clear evidence of excessive force there, he has not faced any charges yet. No charges. And again, I know it doesn't involve murder, but still, it still involves excessive force. There should be some sort of consequence for it.
I mean, how many dozens of stories have we covered here in the U.S.? The 95-year-old who gets shot with the pellets or whatever that they use that wasn't live ammunition, but it's a 95-year-old. Sandbags out of a shotgun, though. He dies of internal bleeding. He died, right? Is there a massive investigation? People charged with murder? That's why, this story is amazing to those of us who live in the United States. If you actually have the cop suspended, hey, wow, in America, that's like justice. If he's fired, it's unbelievable justice and surprising. Second-degree murder? I literally can't remember the last time we did a story on a cop who used excessive force and then was charged with second-degree murder in America. Apparently, the Ontario Special Investigations Unit took over, had a very prompt response. The courts are on it. Seems like all branches of government are on it. Yatim's sister, tweets out, "Good morning, justice." Wow, justice in a country. I'm just totally unfamiliar with it.